In my 7 years of being on Stan Twitter, I have become accustomed to all types of K-pop fans. And if you know anything about Twitter, you know how brutal it gets. Now combine that with the K-pop community, where if you dared to say anything but praise for other people's faves, you suddenly find yourself called names, cursed at, reported, and even doxxed. Now that's one side of Twitter I myself have not come across until recent years, because I always try to keep my peace of mind and not watch teenagers go on and on about which idol from which group hip thrusts the best. But I digress. Every fandom has a portion of solo fans which, as much as fans who support the whole group hate to admit, is okay to some extent. Comparisons are bound to happen when you have multiple people with different looks, different personalities, different levels of talent, and different contributions to the group. People will naturally gravitate toward one or two members more. That's normal. But some fans take it way too far. Now, before starting with this video, let me clarify some terminology. There's a major difference between a solo stan and an AKA. A solo stan is a person who likes only one member in a group, so they put their whole attention and energy on this one person. They support their projects, stream their solos, post their achievements, and all of that is fine. It becomes a problem when they turn into an ake or a malicious individual fan. These fans like only one member of the group and strongly dislike the others to the extent of bashing them for the sake of praising their bias. When they start shading the other members, comparing achievements out of nowhere, or spreading narratives about mistreatment to push a victim complex for their fave, that's how you know it's an ake. For simplicity, I'll refer to them as toxic solo stans throughout this video. I will be discussing one specific fandom today, because honestly, it's the fandom I've seen have the most amounts of solo stans and toxic solo stans, Blinks. I have to mention, though, me discussing Blackpink's fandom does not mean it's the only fandom with a solo stan culture, but the structure of their group and the way their solos have been promoted make solo stanning more visible. Remember, this video is purely for educational purposes and is meant to criticize these toxic solo stans, not the artists. Now let's get into it. Blackpink debuted in 2016 under YG Entertainment with Jisoo, Jennie, Rose, and Lisa. Their debut was one of the most anticipated in K-pop history. They were coming from one of the biggest companies in South Korea, which meant they were immediately met with national and international attention, love, and support. With such success, you would think that the company would profit from that by releasing multiple albums to keep the fans coming, but the opposite ended up happening. Almost a decade into their career, Blackpink has a total of 34 original songs under their name as of August 2025. This number excludes the Japanese versions of their Korean songs, remixes, instrumentals, acoustic versions, live albums, etc. They released 2 singles in 2016, totaling 4 original tracks, 1 single in 2017, a mini-album in 2018 with 4 original tracks as well as a collaboration with Dua Lipa, another mini-album in 2019 with 4 original tracks, a Samsung Galaxy soundtrack in 2020, a collaboration with Lady Gaga in 2020, as well as their first studio album, 4 years after they debuted, with 8 original tracks, a collaboration song with PUBG Mobile in 2022, another studio album in 2022 with 7 original tracks, a soundtrack for their game in 2023, and most recently, a single in 2025. Now, as you can see, for a group that debuted in 2016 and with the same global success as Blackpink, 34 songs is far less than what the fans have expected. That's why you'll see some fans trending hashtags and sending trucks demanding more releases and content. Some might say these infrequent releases are YG's strategy to pull in more fans. The less you release, especially for a big group such as Blackpink, who have established their name and sound in the industry, the hungrier fans and the public become. Fans would stream everything, from music videos to dance practices, because they've been deprived of new content. And later on, when the group wasn't releasing music, their solos became the content. Years would pass between group comebacks and were instead filled with solo releases. So for many fans, stanning Blackpink meant stanning a single member's solo career. And that's how the fandom started consisting of more solo stans than OT4 Blinks. Jennie was the first member to release her solo album Solo in 2018. However, this was not the first time fans have heard of her outside of Blackpink. Jennie had a feature in Lee Hi's album in 2013, as well as a feature in 2 of Big Bang's members' albums. Then it was quiet for years until she had a feature on the HBO series The Idol soundtrack, One of the Girls, as well as her special single You and Me in 2023. So it's safe to say that out of all of the members, Jennie had the most amount of stans and solo stans even before her solo activities outside of YG Entertainment began. Lisa was next in line, and she released her debut single album La Lisa in 2021, as well as her collaboration with Ozuna, DJ Snake, and Megan Thee Stallion for SG. Her third and final solo project under YG Entertainment was Shung with Taeyang in 2023. Rosé also released her debut single album under YG Entertainment in 2021 with R. Before that, she was featured in G-Dragon's album in 2012, and had a solo single in their album Born Pink with Hard to Love. Then finally, 2 years later, Jisoo was the last member to release her solo debut with Me in 2023. From 2012 to 2023, the girls had solo projects of their own alongside their group projects, but that was still far from what fans were hoping for. That's why you must have seen a lot of their solo stans happy when the members renewed their group contract with YG Entertainment in 2023, but not their individual contracts. This meant that each member can shine on their own without the restrictions of their company. Lisa, Jennie, and Jisoo have launched their own labels, while Rosé signed with the Black Label, an associate company of YG Entertainment. Under these labels, each member immediately started releasing more songs and working on their full solo albums. Rosé released an Island 2 soundtrack Final Love Song, APT featuring Bruno Mars and Number One Girl, all in 2024. She was the first member to release her full studio album as she released Rosie in December of 2024. She also released 2 singles in 2025, Messy, a soundtrack for the F1 movie, and On My Mind in collaboration with Alex Warren. Then in February of 2025, Jisoo released her first mini-album, Amortage. Lisa released 3 singles in 2024, Rockstar, New Woman, and Moonlit Floor, Kiss Me. She then released Born Again, featuring Doja Cat and Ray, and later her full studio album, Alter Ego, all in February of 2025. She also had a feature on Maroon 5's album, Love Is Like with Priceless. As for Jennie, she released Slow Motion, a collaboration with Matt Champion, Spot, a collaboration with Zico, and Mantra, in 2024. She was the last to release her full studio album, Ruby, in March of 2025. From the moment the girls terminated their individual contracts with YG Entertainment, they have released 51 original solo songs in total. Blinks were now over the moon. They received more solo songs from the 4 members in under 2 years than they did from Blackpink in nearly 10. But that's also how solo fans started to become the majority. Now, going this far into the video, you've probably picked up on why Blackpink, out of all of the other K-pop groups, has the most amount of solo stans. But let me get through the reasons people have come up with, and let me know what you think. 1. Group structure and prolonged solo activity. As I've mentioned before, Blackpink has started their solo careers early in their career as a group. The members have pursued solo projects for extended periods, with infrequent group activities. This encourages emotional detachment from the collective, and pushes fans to focus on one member as their sole interest. 2. Individual branding. YG is known to have multiple marketing strategies. One of them is making sure to market each member of his groups to build a name for themselves in their own right. And that's not easy in an industry that often treats idols as interchangeable. But I have to mention that if that was the case, then he failed to offer these girls what he thinks would make them great soloists: actual albums. So while the branding was there, the actual discography wasn't, which left fans frustrated and craving more. Aside from that, all 4 members have distinctive images that were launched through solo releases, acting, and brand deals. All of this has built strong individual followings beyond the group. However, this division early on in their career also divided the fandom. People saw how successful their idol could be on their own, and most of them stopped supporting the girls as a group. 3. Solo fandom names. Separate fandom names for each of the girls have existed even before they started their solo projects. And after pursuing and focusing on their solo careers, each member hinted at a fandom name to identify their fans. First, it was Lisa, who started calling her fans Lilies, as early as of June 2024. This name has been already established within her solo fandom for years now, although it was unofficial. Jennie's solo fans used to, and some still do until now, call themselves Gensetters. However, on September of 2024, Jennie called them Rubies in her agency's channel, although it was later clarified to not being the official fandom name, but rather an affectionate term. This fandom name is widely used within her solo fandom as well. And most recently, in a live with Doechii, she chose capybaras as her fandom's unofficial name.
Wait, what's your fan's name? Because it's not capybaras, right?
It's not. I don't have an official name. Let's go with capybaras today.
Really? Okay, fine. We're gonna go with capybaras today.
She also opened an Instagram podcast channel and named it Capybara Only, and addressed her fans as capybaras once again. Rose calls hers number ones, while Jisoo has made it clear that she prefers blinks. Now, of course, none of these are official fandom names as far as I know, aside from blinks, obviously. These fandom names are used whenever the members are not in group activities, which is expected, but it reinforces a separate identity within the same fandom. Another topic that comes up a lot in these solo stans discussions is the fact that most people believe the girls are not as close as the fans would love to think. And honestly, this is nothing new. Since their debut, people have been dissecting every single interaction between the girls, whether it's how close they stand to each other, who they hug first, or who they tag in an Instagram story. The reality is, these girls have known each other for over a decade. They've been through training, debut, touring, and insane levels of public scrutiny together. Of course, like in any workplace, there are going to be differences in personality, habits, or how they express affection. And it may seem worse in Blackpink's case because they don't look as close as other K-pop groups. But solo stans take those differences and spin them into entire conspiracy theories. Their faves are always an outcast, always hated on by the other members, always ignored and disrespected. And in their heads, that somehow justifies the hate these solo stans send to the other members. Now, please keep in mind that I'm sharing these instances not because I necessarily think they mean anything, but to show how every little move from the girls will be spun around to cause a war between these solo stans, no matter how many times the Blackpink members themselves reassured how strong their relationship is. Take the most recent example, the whole Jennie and Rose situation that's been going around these past few weeks. It started with Jennie deleting a photo from her Instagram account on July 18th that featured only her and Rose, but kept photos of her with the other members. This, of course, fueled rumors that they hate each other, and solo stans ran with it. And I'm guessing the girls were aware of it, because 5 days later in their Toronto concert, Jennie said this.
Because we love each other so much, and we never seem to understand what the other person is saying, but yeah, we get to it after the show, so don't worry.
Fans also noticed that in a separate post on her Instagram on July 28th, Jennie had covered Rose's face with a heart emoji. Some said Rose could have asked Jennie to cover her face, but others argued that if that was the case, she shouldn't post the picture anyway. Later on, Rose posted a picture where she covered Jennie's face with a dumpling emoji. And honestly, the girls must be trolling these toxic solo stans at this point. There were also instances where these toxic solo stans would be waiting for one member to slip up and not show public support for the other members' albums to jump them, and accuse them of hate and jealousy. And I honestly won't get into that, because it's even more petty than the examples I've showed before. The members could be a few hours late in posting a story after the release of another member's album, and toxic solo stans are already in a war against each other. Instead, I will just leave this clip here.
뭔가 사람들이 생각하기에는 그래도 블랙핑크가 너무 입지가 높은 집단이다 보니까 불화설 같은 것도 괜히 추측하고 싶고
맞아.
얘랑 얘가 사이가 안 좋다 얘랑 얘랑 사이가 안 좋다
우리는 그런 거
이런 것도
보면서
생각하고
되게
싶고.
웃어요.
웃기잖아.
내가 널 견제하고 있대 조심해. 빨리 이래 진짜. 야 왜 안 올려서 불화설 만들어? 야 내 거 홍보했어야지. 약간 이런 느낌이지.
그치.
되게 농담으로 넘기지.
그렇지.
These toxic solo stans don't just argue between themselves by coming at other solo stans, they have to bring in the girls into it, unprovoked. They would throw racial slurs, mock body types and features, compare them to animals, compare achievements while purposefully shading the other members, and intentionally start hate trains against the other members. You would think that this is all happening between two fandoms because, as miserable as it is, we're used to such behaviors. But it's worse that it's within the same fandom. These people have no purpose in life. They get off talking nonsense just for the sake of provoking a reaction out of people. And many fall for it and start dragging other artists into it, and the cycle continues. And while there's still a percentage of sane blinks who criticize these solo stans, the toxicity has completely fractured the image of the fandom. Some blinks won't even call themselves blinks anymore because the fandom is that messy, and they don't want to associate themselves with it. At the end of the day, Blackpink's success is undeniable. They've broken records, sold out stadiums, and each member has become a global star in her own right. But with such limited group activity, their fandom has become one of the most divided in K-pop history. Instead of celebrating the group's achievements, much of the online discourse revolves around rivalry and hate. I was honestly going to include another K-pop fandom with a big solo stan culture as well, but the video is long enough discussing Blackpink's fandom, so I may make a similar video in the far future. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Do you see solo stans as a natural part of modern fandoms, or do you think Blackpink's situation is unique to their history and management? That is it for today. I will talk to you guys in the next video.